Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Shitshow. Bum, 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 bum. Back in March of 2020, we had a Friday the 13th. March 13th, 2020 was Friday. And a few months before that, actually, September 13th, 2020, not only was it Friday the 13th, but it had a full moon. I actually have a few pictures of it. Unfortunately, it was really cloudy in Seattle, but I have the full moon behind the clouds. And that was around the time that COVID became jump species. It wasn't a pandemic yet at the time, obviously. March 11, 2020 was when the CDC and the WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic. The 4th of July in 2020 was a Saturday and it had a lunar eclipse. And that's significant because in the 1970s, the Chicago band sang a song about Saturday in the Park on the 4th of July, right? And a lunar eclipse is definitely a great reason to go to the park, especially because, if I remember correctly, it was in the late afternoon. And so, 4th of July, having a lunar eclipse, it created another wave of COVID. uh, Halloween in 2020 had a full moon, and then November of 2020 had a lunar eclipse. It was only a penumbral one. I was in Wallace when I viewed it, and then December 21st of 2020, Jupiter and Saturn came into conjunction, and all of those. Oh, and November 13th of 2020 was a Friday as well. So Friday the 13th, astrological events, full moons, and especially when they come together with Saturday in the Park, when they come together with Halloween, tend to bring a lot of bad luck for some reason. I'm just going by statistics here. All of the big COVID waves have been preceded by such an event. Uh, in 2021, we had a lunar eclipse in May of 2021. In August of 2021, we had a Friday the 13th. Both of those coincided with big waves, Delta, and so the only COVID peak that wasn't preceded by one of these events was the Omicron wave on Black Friday of 2021. I distinctly remember that wave because silver prices had crashed, and I went all around online looking for a good deal on a large silver bar. I think I eventually bought about 300 ounces. And in 2022, I was really worried going into 2022 because May of 2022 had both a lunar eclipse and a Friday the 13th. And sure enough, I actually got COVID-19 that time. What's really funny was I was working at a tutoring center, and my boss was really upset at me about pointing out the statistics of it. I had a student who was studying statistics, and I asked him, what are the odds that out of 4 Friday the 13th since the beginning of the pandemic, all of them coincide with a COVID peak? What are the odds of that by coincidence? And when we did the calculation, it was only one in a few thousand. And my boss refused to believe it. And I told him, May of 2022, you better be careful. And in March of 2022, we no longer had to wear masks. I continue to wear them, not necessarily out of COVID precautions, but because I really did well when people weren't seeing my facial expressions. I found that I could handle job negotiations a whole lot better. And I told my boss, why don't you keep your mask on? Because we got a Friday the 13th coming up. And you remember I showed your student, it was only 1 in 1,000 chance this was going to happen by chance. He laughed. Friday the 13th in May comes around, and both of us got COVID-19. And after we came back to work, he continued to laugh. So that didn't shut him up. I think he just doesn't trust me because I'm solosexual. We had a lot of tensions over that too. I eventually left that job, and just last month we had a lunar eclipse, and now COVID cases are up. But my coworker says part of the reason that COVID cases go up during a lunar eclipse is how people go out to see the lunar eclipse and spread COVID-19. In January, we have another Friday the 13th, and then tomorrow we have the Lunar Occultation of Mars, and I'm starting to get nervous again because all of these, the probability of COVID-19 happening every time we have one of these is just so small. And my former boss can bear witness that I predicted one before it happened, and he and I both got a really bad case of COVID-19. And so after that, I'm not taking any chances anymore. Anyway, stay safe. But it's good. I hope we work remotely again. I did really well when we were working remotely. If I get to work remotely again, I hope to spend some time in Wallace, Idaho again. I had a lot of good luck there. Not the end of the world, and I think we can all discover something new, and hopefully people will start to eat to eat their words when they laugh at me about the lunar eclipse and Friday the 13th coming when there's a COVID peak. Bomb, 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 bomb. The Peter Shitshow. Bomb, 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 bomb.